This is not the environment to say that. You can't cheer against my Tar Heels. Sorry. And we're live.
Talking everything March Madness.
That's right. This is actually, you're going to teach us about parlays and sports betting.
This is
right,
This is not my last.
Bet every underdog. Bet every underdog for the next 2 days.
Perfect. Love it.
This is just like a March Madness live stream now. This is not my last lease. Welcome back, everybody. We will be talking about how to buy a house in this market. We are 3 loan officers, and we are going to discuss some of the strategies that not only we would personally use if we were to buy our first house in this market, but also that we try to advise our clients on. It's a very challenging market, and we wanted to, instead of just like talking about the challenges of the actual market, we wanted to give y'all some actionable items and some actual solutions. I think it's pretty fair to say that because of interest rates and the lack of inventory and the home values in general, that it's pretty tough to buy a house right now. So that being said, it's more important now more than ever to have like a really solid strategy and a really solid team around you to advise you. So that's what we're going to try to do. And we're going to introduce ourselves before we do that. My name is Nate Fain. I have been a loan officer for 12 years, and I live in Pensacola, Florida.
Perfect. I'm Rebecca Richardson, and I've been a loan officer for over 20 years, and I'm based out of Charlotte.
And I'm Caden Anini, loan officer in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been doing it for a little over 3 years now.
So before we get started on like the actual overall strategy, why don't we talk about like some of the things that we're seeing in y'all's like local market, because we are boots on the ground in our local market. I'll let you know. I guess I'll start. So like I'm in Florida, and if you've read any kind of headline here lately within the last 3 years, you've probably seen that a lot of people are moving to Florida. So in my market locally here, what we're seeing a lot of folks that are out of town that are searching for some lower housing expense, some lower living expense. We don't pay state income tax here in Florida. We do pay very high property tax, except for you people in Texas and New Jersey. Y'all will like laugh at our tax rates. You're like, oh, that's nothing. But our insurance is a little expensive.
Like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Oh, that's all it is. That's great. That's the next wave is we're going to have people moving from Texas to Florida because they're like, oh, okay, I don't have to pay that for property taxes. So,
and then they're all going to move to Tennessee. Like they're going to bounce between the states, no
triangle.
Yeah.
So one of the struggles that we have here locally is that we've got a lot of folks moving in from out of town, and they're coming in from more expensive markets, and they might be able to work from home, work remotely, or travel every once in a while back to wherever their home base is. And so they're making some wages that aren't quite normal for like our market, but then they're buying property that is cheaper for them, but kind of expensive based on the wages that we're accustomed to here. So everybody wanted to move to Florida in the last 3 years. So like the inventory is still very low. So that's one of the struggles that we have here. But then also we had a hurricane in 2020 in our specific area. And we also had, I think if y'all read, was that last year that the condo collapsed in South Florida?
I'm not in tune with South Florida news. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
that's your condo
market. In the condo market, there was a condo that like collapsed. So like insurance here is also a challenge right now. So now more than ever, it's also important that we're working with like a local insurance agent specifically like in your market. I don't know what insurance company I have, but I know who my insurance agent is. And that's really important specifically for Florida. I don't know what other markets are like that, but like I always tell my clients, in Florida specifically, or if you're in anywhere that like you might be prone to some kind of natural disaster, it's usually best if you work with an insurance agent that is local, that is accustomed to dealing with claims for that natural disaster.
Good summary.
Yep.
So ours, even though I'm licensed in a lot of different states, based out of the Carolinas, North Carolina's contract, and North Carolina is the hub for me. So one of the things that I think about the way that real estate gets done in North Carolina that equips kind of our process for a lot of different states is our contract. Because one thing that's unique about the North Carolina contract is we have what's called due diligence. So you have both due diligence and earnest money, and both of those are basically upfront money that is given to say, I want you to take this house off the market. I want to buy it. I want some time to get all of my things done, the appraisal, the loan approval, the title work, all that kind of stuff. And as long as you close on the home, then both what you give up front for the due diligence money and the earnest money goes to your bottom line. If for some reason, and it could be a completely valid reason, like maybe the foundation, has issues, if you pull out of the contract before that due diligence date, you get your earnest money back, but you don't get your due diligence. So on the lending side, we do a lot of the upfront work. And that's what I recommend for someone if you want to buy, because what I didn't do right was I was just so focused on the house. I wasn't really familiar with what we were doing on the mortgage piece and all of that. So my advice, particularly if you are buying in a state that has a component of their contract like that there's not kind of an exit clause if you can't get financing, you really need to make sure that you take the time to work with your loan officer up front, get all the documentation in, make sure that it's reviewed by somebody that's competent and it's a thorough job. Because when you put your money on the line to buy that house, you don't want that contract or you don't want your loan approval to fall through for something that could have been handled up front. So that's really the biggest, kind of the biggest advice is to make sure that as much as possible, as much work as possible is done up front on your loan. So none of that comes as a surprise.
Mm-hmm. And I know Nate, you both have talked about this of like doing all this stuff up front so that do all what you would put it with your son eating your vegetables first, I believe, Nate, of like, yeah, let's get all this stuff squared away. So there's less stress in the back end. When you're, I didn't even know about the due diligence in the Carolinas. So that's new to me, which is crazy. And then, so, I mean, out in Arizona, very similar to Florida, right? Everyone west of the Rockies wants to either get a vacation spot down here or live here. So you have, I think the biggest thing that we have where people are trying to buy homes here to live in is perspective, where it feels expensive here to buy a house, where you have other people coming in going, nah, I'll pay whatever this is great. This is cheaper. Yeah, I'll pay whatever. So you're not only up against rates, but you're up against people's perspective. And that's what I've been trying to tell people is you have specifically Washington, Oregon, California, you can throw in Denver as well, and most of Colorado, but all these people are seeing Arizona as the up and coming town out, or Phoenix as the up and coming town out west. And you got to fight against perspective. So understanding the market is the market. So let's not think that, right. You need a certain price, but I mean, that's kind of the challenges, but I mean, leading into what we were wanting to talk about was what are the pros? What are we looking for when it comes to purchasing? And I will make a video on this, but just the things that you need to look out for, just things that you can do on your own by looking at Redfin. Redfin, Zillow. I know Zillow seems like more of an East Coast thing. We talked about that.
Is that
insert your favorite real estate aggregator website here. Yeah.
Right.
How about that?
Realtor.com, whatever you want.
Whatever works for you. What is the new one? Is it homes.com? What is the one?
Homes.com. Big Super Bowl money put into that. Big Super Bowl money. But getting into like the pros, I want to talk about what I would be doing as a first-time home buyer. And I had a very specific call about this is interest rates are the thing that is stopping a lot of people. And if you have the knowledge, you can fight against them. And looking for the right home in the right situation. So specifically, there was a condo somebody was looking at, was originally listed for $290, been on the market for 90 days, and they've dropped it to $277. That spread is what I'll call it, is your opportunity. Your opportunity to go, okay, so this home was listed at $290. It was, it showed the seller listing agent are suggesting that it should appraise at $290, but they're willing to take as low as $277. If you're offering $290 and getting concessions back from the seller, you can put that all towards just the interest rate if you wanted to. And I was running some go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that's wildly different than what a lot of home buyers have experienced in the last 3-4 years, where the bidding wars were crazy. So like, yes, the interest rates have gone up, but one of the things that I really missed from my client's perspective, and just like looking at it and trying to empathize and put myself in the shoes of the consumer, is it was really expensive to buy a house back then because we were going over ask and not getting any kind of seller concession. So it might be a little bit more expensive from a monthly standpoint, but it's actually a lot of times it's a lot cheaper to get into the house on up front.
The
And
front
I
end.
love that it's like it feels like we're negotiating a little bit more now, and the sellers are willing to negotiate a little bit more now, by and large for the most part, because you can get those seller concessions. And now it's like, okay, wow, now we've got some money to play with. Now we can get creative with this to not only make it more affordable, but like have less money out of pocket.
I was talking with one of my realtors earlier this week, actually, about that during particularly, late 2020, but definitely 2021, it didn't feel great because, especially for first time home buyers, is, these homes would be listed, and to even have a fighting chance, I'll pay over the list price, and, oh, I don't care what it appraises for because I'll make up the gap, all those kind of things. Like, majority of people can't play with, kind of with that big of a ticket, that much of a financial swing. And so for a lot of first time home buyers, they're like, I just can't compete. And that's a real shame. So I feel like now first time home buyers honestly have a better chance than before. For that reason is, yes, it might mean that your buying power is a little bit lower because of because of interest rates and obviously the price of homes. But particularly if you're willing to, and this is where I would say, if I was buying a home as a first time home buyer right now, I would cast a wider net, right? It's, I think all of us, when we were actually building this home, and frustrated that we weren't yet in the home, like we would just binge HGTV and heckle it because like we needed some kind of, outlet for the frustration. And I think what happens is we start watching HGTV and Pinterest and looking at our friends and Instagram and wanting it to kind of be this perfect thing. But if the overall goal is home ownership, it's let's buy a good home and we can make it pretty, right? Because there is some fun, I think, in some of that aspect. So that might look at the homes that have been on the market for longer, because you can, you probably do have more wiggle room as far as negotiating either the price or having the seller, help you out in terms of closing costs or other things that can make the purchase even better. And a lot of people will skip that over because they'll say, oh, something must be wrong with it. It might just have not been, marketed correctly. It might not be for everyone, but it could be perfect for you. So I think it's just, kind of open up a wider, as long as you can, right? Particularly if you're working from home, open up a wider search place, but then also sometimes the criteria of the home. Do you really need 4 bedrooms, or will 4 be great? And it's something that you can expand into, or it's a good fit for now. So that's, I think I would look at what I feel like I need to have versus what I want to have.
And Caden, going back to what you were saying, you've had a lot of success with doing these buy downs. So talk a little bit more about how you've had success with that and like how your clients are kind of like seeing that, because it's kind of an outside the box for like the normal consumer. It's an outside the box solution. And it's a little bit, sometimes it can be hard to digest. So like explain the strategy behind that and how you've had success and the clients, like what they're getting out of it.
Yeah, and going back to us talking about 2020, 2021, like I don't want to use the terms like smart and dumb purchasing. I think it is like it was simplistic to buy a home in 2020 and 2021. It was pay over ask, get home, get low payment. Now it's like critical thinking of like, okay, it's sitting here. I got to negotiate a little bit. This is where not only having a good lender, but this is where having a good agent plays a huge factor in understanding the market and then understanding what they can get away with, like of an offer to be able to put you in a better position. It's completely overlooked, so I think that's such a huge factor. But as for buy downs, I mean, there's been so much success because it's funny how you get a certain percentage of buy down or concessions and you throw it towards a rate, and then people have forgotten about high rates all of a sudden. In that scenario, explaining just in the fact of seeing what a seller's willing to take now versus what they originally listed it for, you can see where their mind has gone. And just from the start of the 290 down to the 277, like they were going to be able to get their closing costs paid for and then get a rate in the 5s. So everyone's hearing about rates in the 7s.
Why don't you explain really quickly what a temporary buy down is for anybody who doesn't know?
Temporary or permanent.
Yeah.
So basically, you say you get those $13,000 in seller concessions. You take that money and put it towards prepaying or just putting money up front to buy down an interest rate. You know, when you get a loan, investors they want interest, they want monthly interest. But if you're willing to pay some upfront and suffice that, they're willing to give you a lower monthly payment. So ultimately, that's what you're doing, and you're doing this all with seller money and money that the seller's willing to give up just to get the home sold, so they can access more of the funds that they want out of the home. So that is such a huge use seller motivation right now to your advantage when it comes to your interest rate, your monthly payment. And shameless plug, go check out my reel I just posted today. Seller concessions.
Nice.
It's funny that you have that on your brain, Caden. I can't imagine why. I think the overarching message, I know, you know, we were going to kind of keep this one a little brief, but I think the overarching message is just, yes, it can be a tough market, but every market has its benefits and has its drawbacks. And I think just saying that it's a tough market and writing it off, you know, is changing yourself, because people are buying homes every day. I mean, we're talking with clients, of course, all kinds of different scenarios. And usually there's a way forward. We just need, you know, sometimes we need a little bit more time. Sometimes there's some tweaks or things like that, but you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you haven't explored.
Yep. And so, do we have the buyer guide ready? Is that something that we can?
It's coming.
Okay, it's coming. So we're working on a buyer guide to help, because one of the things that we're wanting to develop is so you can take this buyer guide and you can kind of get all of your thoughts down on paper, and you can take that back to your agent. You can take that back to your partner that you might be buying with, or it might just be a good exercise for you to say, okay, I like this 5-bedroom house with a pool and 4 bathrooms, but like, do I actually need that? Because one of the things that Rebecca alluded to and we're seeing is like a lot of clients are like, specifically for first-time home buyers, a lot of them are wanting to buy their forever home, when in all reality, like, they need to buy their first home, and then we can scale up from there. And so one of the strategies that I would employ if I were to buy a first home right now is I would buy something that is affordable to me, but then something that I think that I could rent in the future. So that way, if I'm in there for 2 years and I don't like it, I can either offload it by selling it, or I can try to rent it out and maybe get some passive income at that point. So I think sometimes like resetting your expectation, and like Rebecca said, like casting a wider net, talking about what Caden was talking about, where you can you can leverage like where the sellers are at and use seller funds to make that interest rate and that monthly payment more affordable. When you start to combine all that, you've got a pretty solid strategy to where it's like, okay, now I don't have to get into the rat race that was 2020, 2021, and even part of 2022. So it's kind of pick your heart. Do you want to sit there and be in a bidding war constantly, or do you want to have like a little bit more of a strategic communication with your lender and your realtor so that we can set you up for success? So kind of like what Caden said, that's like, it was offer over ask, get house. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit slower paced right now. So I'll finish with this. Like, my best advice is for you to start the pre-approval process early so that you can understand realistically like what your budget looks like, so that you can make a more informed decision. Because anytime you buy a house, there's a lot of money at play there, and we need to do some homework up front. Y'all got anything else to add? No?
I think that's a good note to end it on.
Okay,
I
cool.
think so.
So
Awesome.
drop your email in the comments or DM us on any of our social medias. And when that buyer's guide does go live, we will shoot it out to you. We think it's going to be a really cool tool. And hopefully that will be coming soon.
Perfect. Awesome.
See y'all later.
All right. We'll see you later.